Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another session of the JD Edwards Talks. It's the fifth one in the series, and I'm proud to have today with me Mr. AJ Schifano, a star in JD Edwards world, part of the JD Edwards product development team in Denver. I was in Dallas with him just a week before, and we had a great time at his session. So I'm happy to have AJ speak to you today about enterprise automation, and at the same time to give you just a little bit of an idea of how it was for us there in Dallas. We had a pretty great team of Quistor presenting there. This is actually AJ's session live with John Green, the support leader. So as you see, the room was packed. Everyone pretty excited, and I'm hoping AJ to transmit the same excitement today. This is Paul Holt Cooper, the father, let's say, of JD Edwards, and some dance movements on the partners exhibitor lounge. So yeah, it was a nice time in Dallas. I'm hoping InFocus will be much better this year in Denver at the beginning of October, but until then, we want to be inspired. So AJ, what will you do for us today? How will you inspire us?
Well, thanks for the memories there, Andrea. Thanks for inviting me here today. Yeah, that was, does it work? Is it fun? It's hard to tell sometimes when we're doing such great things, but yeah, thanks for those memories. Well, yeah, just being at someplace, collaborative like that, it's always inspiring us, especially for me in my role as a product manager, right? I'm halfway in between the customers, partners, and our development organization. So I need to hear what you customers, have to problems, business issues, things you're trying to pursue, how we might solve that with software, take it back to the engineers, build something cool, and then come back and tell you all about it. And one of our major initiatives is enterprise automation. So hopefully that term is not new to you, but we have been making quite a bit of progress there. So I'd like to share that and similar progress across our entire digital platform. That's my area of expertise and responsibility as product manager for the JD Edwards Enterprise One digital platform.
Sounds super exciting, AJ. And even though, everyone was talking about AI and stuff, most of our customers do not know really how it works. But what they do know is how JD Edwards works. And I'm sure that your tips and tricks on driving automation using the native JD Edwards functionality will help them redefine the business processes. So guys, if you have any questions, let's make the session super interactive. We have a chat open for you. Our colleague Francesca is moderating the questions, but I will try to open up the questions to AJ to answer, or myself if I can do that. So let's get this started. And super excited, AJ, to see again your session and to see how our customers will interact with you.
Yeah, let's jump right into it, shall we? Let me
Please
share
do.
my screen.
And we are about to see your screen now. Yes.
All right, great. Well, as you mentioned, Andrea, you're right. AI is making a lot of noise. It's very interesting. It's a technology with a whole lot of potential, and it's not disengaged from enterprise automation. As a matter of fact, we're having a lot of meetings about how to bring the two together. But one of the beauties of enterprise automation is that it's so tangible. It's here and now. There are things that we can do, without a lot of investment, with just a little bit of thought, and we think there's going to be some real benefit in this idea of enterprise automation. So by way of agenda, really quickly, I'd like to spend about 20 minutes going through our vision and our strategy for enterprise automation, and then finish up with some specific enhancements that we've released in the near past, and even take a look at some of the software that's available for you to use now. So, and of course, we'll talk about what's next. So this is our logo for enterprise automation. Hopefully you're seeing this. You should see this in slide decks from Gary Grayshaber and Paul Hout Cooper and my boss, John Green. We tend to think of this as a 5-step life cycle of an ingest, model, analyze, solve, and measure. And that life cycle continues in a circle. And right at the center of that is your JD Edwards Enterprise One system. Of course, you've got cumulative value in all the applications you use: financials, distribution, manufacturing, projects, agribusiness, whatever your business is, those applications are at the core of what's happening. And system administration, even how you keep your system up to date and release new features and stay code current, is important in that. And my area, my specific area of expertise and responsibility, is that digital platform. So I think we should start with our first poll and ask, has anybody even heard this term? Hopefully, we've been talking about it for over a year now. So, have you heard? Or, is it new to me? So are you going to launch the poll?
People have heard about it. So let's hope that this is not the first time that people are hearing about enterprise automation, right? So 3 options here. Enterprise automation is new to me. I've heard about it before, but I'm not yet sure what it is, how to manage it in JD Edwards, or we are already using enterprise automation techniques to improve our business. So please, everyone on the call, I see we have 21 people so far, hoping to get more. I know there are some holidays across Western Europe today, so we are recording the session, but the people present now in this call, please answer.
And is the poll launched, or am I supposed to launch that? I don't.
No, it's launched already.
It's launched already? Okay, great. Well, then I'm going to continue while the poll is working. And one of the key themes in enterprise automation is that your data, especially for us, context of this conversation, your JD Edwards business data is digital gold. Most of us have been running JD Edwards systems for years, possibly decades, and you can imagine the depth and value of the digital gold you've been accumulating in terms of transactions, sales orders, purchase orders, work orders. How big are your JD Edwards tables? And of course, it's a system of record. But the premise with enterprise automation is that there's value in that data, even beyond collecting, capturing, recording, and reporting that data back out as transactions. And
just to a little pause here.
Yep.
So only 15% of the people are already using enterprise automation. For 20%, this is new, and 65 I've heard, but I'm not sure what it is. So this is a good learning
excellent
exercise.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you for the feedback. That's great. Yes. So this is sort of the vision statement and the core of our message about enterprise automation. And it starts with congratulations. We've made a lot of progress with process automation. When I take a look at the customer success stories, especially using Orchestrator or our workflow systems or our extensibility framework with Enterprise One pages and watch lists and UX One role-based pages, all these things accumulate into better process automation. So where do we go next? And we think the natural evolution beyond process automation is what we're calling enterprise automation. What would it look like if we could expand the focus of those individual targeted process automations we make? Think of the orchestrations that you might have created to automatically create a work order or to automatically do inventory movement in the warehouse. Some of these are triggered by mobile applications or third-party integrations, or possibly just simplified user interfaces for end users. These are all fantastic stories about process automation. But what would it look like if we expanded that focus across the whole business and those automations could possibly become interconnected? Well, what happens there is we obviously get better, smoother operations through automation. But those automations are also collecting a lot of data, way more data than a human being could collect manually, right? Dropping data into the systems. That's the digital gold, right? We're filling up our JD Edwards Enterprise One databases with that digital gold. And when we can extract that out, that's where we get the innovation that we need, human innovation. And Possibly this is a good place for AI to come in as well, to read, analyze, solve problems. And that's how we get to continuous improvement, right? That's how we get to, if we don't like the key metrics that we're seeing, if we're looking for improvement or possibly new business models, new ways of doing business, then we have to look at that data and see it. So this is where we break down the enterprise automation story into that 5-step life cycle, that I mentioned: ingest, model, analyze, solve, and measure. And for today, we're going to focus on the models, especially models and metrics, things that are ingested from the JD Edwards data that you've been amassing for years, and how to analyze those to solve problems and eventually get to better measurements, better KPIs. So you've been amassing these data for years in terms of the JD Edwards applications. You create purchase orders, and the ledger tables have data in them. Even the workflow tables, right, have been collecting data through automated processes. And so this is where that gold resides in your JD Edwards system already. And this is the data that we need to ingest. So if we want to build models over this data, how would we model our business process? Well, in years past, decades past, we might have gone to a conference room and sat down on a whiteboard with our business process experts and say, what is the ideal process? What is the ideal procure to pay process? What is the ideal order to cash process? And we draw that on a whiteboard, and have some nice flowchart diagrams, possibly Visio. We'd print them as PDFs and we'd say those are our perfect process models. But in fact, the data in the JD Edwards system implies process models itself. Here's a good example, right? Here's a set of status codes. This happens to be about work with shipments in the shipping application in JD Edwards. Right? And just like so many applications in JD Edwards, this application is driven by status codes, right? 05, 10, 20, 25, 30, 50. And those status codes are relatively arbitrary, right? There's no reason that those status codes have to go up in order, but a human did these, and that increasing order in the status codes certainly implies a process, doesn't it? Wouldn't you think that the status would go from quote to pending to hold to approve to confirm, right? And so many places in the JD Edwards applications, we have the same sort of model about status codes. So why couldn't we take those status codes and use them to build a process model, right? And we can. And if you notice, this one sort of looks like a Enterprise One page, because it is. And the tiles on that Enterprise One page represent steps in the process. And we can even draw arrows to connect those nodes of the process into a workflow. You also notice that there's some numbers around those tiles. That's a relatively new enhancement, where we can put watch lists as metrics on top of the tiles. So this is a pretty simple concept, right? How many applications in JD Edwards are driven by status codes? And couldn't we think of a way to associate those as process models on any one page? To take it one step further, right, many of these applications are also driven by order activity rules, not just a set of statuses that tend to go in increasing order, but a set of defined rules that says, hey, when I enter a sales order, if it's at status 520, I'm allowed to go to 540. I usually go to status 540, but I'm also allowed to go to 560 or 535. And this is just a higher set of discipline and order across those increasing statuses. So doesn't this data in our JD Edwards system also imply a process model? By the way, if you are using these order activity rules, you might notice that there's a column in that setup application over on the right called ledger, yes, no. And that's where you control when these application transactions happen. Do you want to also write a record into a ledger table? And I suspect a lot of us have that turned on to no, have that setting set to no. Don't record this in the ledger table. Well, with enterprise automation, I'm going to propose that now is the time to flip those to yes and begin collecting those ledger items. That is the digital gold that we're going to go back later and analyze, right? And hopefully, with cloud resources and disk space as cheap as it is, and opportunities to tune our JD Edwards system, turning on this ledger record, is not going to be a detriment to your performance. There are ways to architect around that, but think of the gold that you could be collecting if all of these ledgers are flipped to yes. We're going to need that gold later for analysis. So now back to our example of the order activity rules. If I've set it up to, hey, status 520 of an order can go to 540, 560, or 535. We imagine all the steps having all the rules about what other steps could go to where. Well, then why couldn't we point software at that? Why do we have to manually build an Enterprise One page? Couldn't a piece of software read and interpret those order activity rules and draw out the complete set of allowable paths? And it might look something like this, sometimes a bit of a traffic jam. And this is the business process model and the metrics about that. If you notice, the nodes themselves can have some numbers, and the links between the nodes might have some metrics associated with them. A lot of zeros here. And what might those zeros represent? Well, that's where we get into if the order activity rules describe all of the paths that could possibly happen. We could also point that software at those ledger tables where we've been collecting data about what's actually happened. And what happens if we collect data about what's actually happened and turn off all the zeros? Well, now we can get a more focused view of what's really happening in our enterprise. This is not hopeful whiteboard conference room process model. This is a process model as shown in your JD Edwards data, in your digital gold, of what's really happening. And these are the models and metrics that we're going to use for analysis. Do I have problems? Do I have holdups? Do I have opportunities for improvement? Do I have opportunities for different business models? This is the data, the models and metrics we're going to use to analyze to solve those problems, which leads us into this analyze phase, the third phase of the enterprise automation circle. So what would happen if we went into that gold, that digital gold, and as I said, we're able to collect metrics about the steps in the process, the nodes themselves, the links between the nodes, and also, possibly some charts and graphics and metrics about the process as a whole. And if we could see those right in the context. Now you might be thinking to yourself, well, AJ, in the UX1 paradigm, we have alert, analyze, and act. And the JD Edwards team has delivered a lot of Enterprise One pages that are, modeled around the UX1 role based, right? We have the various roles with alert, analyze, act, where the watch lists are on the left, and we've got some of these analytic charts in the middle, and then we have some launch panes, some springboards to applications on the right. Those are really good for users to use the software. In this model, we've realized that it's very important to put the metrics in the context of the process model. Now, these numbers, you could think of these as watch lists. As a matter of fact, they are watch lists today. The difference is these watch lists are now appearing in the links and on the nodes, right in the context of the process model. And then we can reuse some of those UX1 analytics in those charts and also put those in the right in the context of the model. So here we're getting a good analytic view of the process model, the models and the metrics, which could show us some surprises. There could be things that we know are a problem already. We just had trouble quantifying them. There could be a few surprises in here. So I didn't even know that was a problem, or I didn't even know that was an opportunity. And now we can focus our attention on those and solving them. In the solve phase, this, as I mentioned earlier, possibly this is a good place to plug in artificial intelligence. Personally, I'm a big fan of human intelligence. So here's where we do what humans do best. We invent things, we solve problems, we have ingenuity and innovation. So, given the data that we've seen from our system, we're able to analyze those models and metrics. We can pinpoint the problem places. What is the solution? Possibly it's more automation. Sit down and write an orchestration, right, to take human error out of the steps, or a workflow. Hopefully you've seen in latest JD Edwards releases, we put a lot of emphasis on renewing the workflow engine and framework. Could be simple notifications and messages with action links. Those act like simple workflow processes. A lot of power in there, and that's capability in your JD Edwards system today. Could be that users are making mistakes when they enter transactions, and they simply need better training. So hopefully you've heard about Oracle guided learning and the ability to integrate user documentation and guidance right in the Enterprise One user interface. It could be simplification. Hey, my users are making mistakes because they do work in the warehouse and then they have to go back to a desktop to enter data, and maybe a mobile application used in the warehouse could solve that, where data can be collected simply and accurately by scanning right at the point of transaction, or simpler web applications. Orchestrations are empowering customers and partners to build these applications, and with a lot of great success. It could be that the process models show problems with my suppliers. Maybe the solution is just a better contract. If orders are already always late, orders are always incomplete, orders are always being sent back due to poor quality. Now, it could be just a better contract with your supplier that's the solution. Whatever it is, right? This is human ingenuity, but this is also the phase, this solution phase, where the concept of no code, low code is so important. Hopefully you've been hearing about how the JD Edwards digital platform, and especially the extensibility framework, Enterprise One pages, personal forms, form extensions, grid layouts. There's probably a dozen or more components to that extensibility framework. That is the JD Edwards no code, low code solution. And the reason this is important is because when we solve these problems, when we've analyzed the data, we've put our human ingenuity to work, we know how to solve the problem, it cannot be a 6-month solution. We're not going to sit down and develop things and code the way we did in decades past, code new applications, customizations, complex integrations to third-party systems, and 6 months later, maybe we have a solution, right? No. I compare this to trying to light a fire, right? The no code, low code concept. Yes, we can light a fire by rubbing sticks together, but that's a lot of energy, and it takes a long time. Sometimes it takes so long that it's not even worth lighting the fire. But if we could only just strike a match and light that fire immediately, that's the concept with no code, low code. If I see a solution and I can get it out, today is Tuesday, I think I can write an orchestration on Wednesday, I'll test it on Thursday, and I'll put it into production on Friday, or days or a week or two. That's the kind of reaction we're looking for. So that's the solve. And yes, in fact, we think there's opportunity for AI to plug in here. So hold on to your seats.
I see that, AJ. I see that, and I think that applications are taking more and more, are providing more and more solutions to all the problems that we see every day. So my kid drops me an application every other week telling me that there's a solution to all of our problems. So ingenuity is here. We just need to find it within JD Edwards tooling as well.
Yes. And you know who helps with that, Andrea? Good partners.
Oh,
good
thank
partners
you.
Up here.
Let's see to that. It's ideas. It's the community. Sometimes I see the customers helping each other. So just bringing them together, and it's a bunch of ideas shared to the partner as well. So happy to be in this kind of community. So more people have joined since we have started, which is great. If you have questions to AJ, please do not hesitate to drop them in the chat. So let's see how we measure this actually. So you walked us through all the areas, but the measuring part is also important to calibrate the results, right?
Excellent question, Andrea. How do we measure this, right? And of course, measuring there's really no magic in that. That's why we depict this whole thing as a circle, right? As a cycle. And when we get to the measure place, we're actually reusing some of the analytics that we were using earlier, right? We know that that data is still in the JD Edwards Gold. So we're still going to use those analytic charts, graphs, possibly even watch lists. But what we're expecting, what we're hoping for and expecting is that these numbers have now changed, right? That the KPIs have improved because we've modeled the true business process, not what we hope, but what the JD Edwards data shows, the models and the metrics. We've analyzed that. We've rolled out some solutions quickly. So hopefully by now, we're able to use the UX1 analytic charts, the JET charts that we've been building, the OneView reporting. We have so many opportunities to collect and visualize data here, but this is where we hope to see the numbers improve. Again, that data is your digital gold, and so that's what we're trying to do. So that is the vision and the strategy for attacking enterprise automation. And now I'm happy to report that we've actually had a roadmap of real JD Edwards enhancements to make this a reality. And that's the next phase. But this is a good place to stop and see if anybody has any questions.
I don't see any asks. It's more like, thank you for hosting. This is great. I've always related automation with orchestrations, which is another great thing to achieve with our customers. So using the orchestrations and defining or redefining business processes through orchestrations, watch list, UDOs, that's perfect. Maybe
so
maybe if you don't have questions, guys, you can put examples here, and we would also like to see those.
Yeah, great idea. Because next is the exciting part. We get to see some of these real enhancements that we've been rolling out. And so as a product manager, I need to make sense of this myself. So I use that 5-step life cycle to sort of organize and imagine, if we want to accomplish this, what features, what enhancements should we be building out in the JD Edwards product? And the first step in that is really to take inventory of what's in JD Edwards already. We're not starting from scratch. I mentioned earlier, we know for the data, excuse me, we have the transaction tables and ledgers and audit tables and workflow tables. And you all know the favorite tables in your specific area of expertise. For modeling, we're also not starting from scratch. Now, I showed a view of Enterprise One pages. So that's right there in front of us, and nothing stopping us from creating tiles and building those composed pages, putting arrows between the pages. So we have a good place to start. Orchestrator Studio, Workflow Studio, Activity Rules. These are all existing assets in our JD Edwards system to help us model. And similarly, we have tools for analyzing, solving, and measuring. In this yellow box across, these are recent enhancements that we've rolled out in release 20, I think 22, 23, and most recently release 24. A couple of weeks ago, we even did our May update to release 24. So some of these are brand new. User-defined orchestration monitoring. This, for those of you that are building orchestrations and watching how they run, some of them have become, very mission critical to the business, which is great. So it's important to see, if anything goes wrong, I need to monitor those and correct it. Well, customers have also been asking us, well, in addition to recording and showing orchestrations that have maybe failed or have some exception, we also want to track the ones that succeed. Why? Well, because that gives us some visibility into our automated processes. We need to see the ones that succeed so that we can analyze that data and see, how many are failing, how many are succeeding, how long did they take. Not only that, but we can go one step further in user-defined orchestration monitoring and track the individual steps in an orchestration. So that's pretty cool. Task tracking is an enhancement where we recognize that not every important thing that happens necessarily happens in a JD Edwards application transaction. It's not just sales orders, purchase orders, work orders, the individual transactions in applications. Some things we want to assign people to do as a task, but we also want to track, what's the status of this? Is it complete? Is it in process? Do I reject this? And a framework for dropping markers and collecting that data, more digital gold, by the way. So I'm not going to go into each and every one of these, but I do want to focus on the next three. As a matter of fact, I'm going to slip over and do a little demo. We have, in terms of modeling, we've rolled out an enterprise automation process model for requisition to receipt, for shipment to dispatch, and for order to cash. And these are enhancements that are available now. They're out on the JD Edwards Update Center. You can download them and apply them as ESUs, and they look something like this. So I am going to assume.
Let's see.
Let's see if I can switch.
Entering in JD now. Okay.
I am going to switch over to Firefox. And of course, I've timed out. So I will sign back in. Timed out because I'm talking too long because I'm so excited about enterprise automation. So much to say.
Let's see how it looks like in JD.
So you probably recognize something like this. Latest release of Enterprise One, and I'm going to load it up with the procure to pay process, which again, mining into our JD Edwards system, we have orders via EDI, which then may become requisitions, which then need to go out to an approval, which then turn into purchase orders. Then we have a purchase order approval process, which then feeds into goods receipt, at which point we have vouchers and we have an entire voucher matching place. So we can visualize this as a very, parent level, high level flow of what the procurement process might look like. You can recognize this as an Enterprise One page. So somebody built this page and put these tiles with the arrows on there. Relatively new enhancement is the ability to put these watch lists. So these are the badges, and these function just like good old-fashioned watch lists. So if I want to drill in, these are live. I can click on this 3 and drill right into and see the 3 records that are behind this watch list. You might be thinking, well, this is a very high-level look at the procurement process flow. In fact, purchase order approval, this tile here, when I click it, another enhancement, we can launch to a completely new page. And in this case, yes, in fact, the process is more complex. So I can drill into another layer, and you can imagine clicking and clicking and clicking deeper and deeper into process models that are more specific. So that's an enhancement that's in the Enterprise One system. I have a back button here, breadcrumb, to take me back to where I was. Another enhancement, you might notice, I can zoom in here a little bit. These little up and down indicators on the watch lists, these all happen to be up, but that's okay. Imagine that some of them might go down because we realized that in these watch lists, we can set thresholds. And when we breach the threshold, the watch list will change color. Up until the last release, That threshold could only be ascending though, right? If I have too many records, if the number got too high, I could cross the threshold and change the color of the watch list. But that's not always true, right? Sometimes I want to set a watch list where the number is too low. I'd like to throw an indicator, turn the badge orange or red. And so that's what these little arrows indicate, up and down. We call that one ascending or descending thresholds on watch lists. Here we have some analytics that are, put right in the context of the process. And you can imagine these can either be new analytics KPIs, or we might even reuse these from our UX1 role-based pages. And so if there's some metrics they want to see right in terms of these process, like this one is a spend analysis, and this is my supplier delivery performance. We can build these out, or these tiles here can launch into additional analytics. Again, more gold coming out of the system. And again, not just gold in the system, but the important piece in the enterprise automation framework is that these are happening in context of the process model. So, this whole procurement, procure to pay set of user-defined objects, the page, the tiles, the charts, the graphics, the watch lists are all available today in release 24 in the May release. So you can go to the update center and download these. We also did one for order to cash. Looks like this. No surprise, it's a very similar layout with the process, a simple process if you feel you need to drill in. And by the way, all the tools that we use to build these are tools that you have available at your disposal. You can build Enterprise One pages today. You can put these tiles and watch lists on these panes. You can build these charts and graphs and assemble them all as an Enterprise One page. So again, we've got tiles and models and metrics in the form of watch lists and linking out to applications or additional graphics. Demo system's a little slow. But here you can see that we've launched out to one of the standard UX1 role-based pages that I was talking about earlier, where the watch lists are on the left, the analytics are in the middle, and the launch page, the springboards to applications, are on the right. Completely reusable. Yep.
We do have a question from Thomas. He's asking us if testing automation is also something in scope of AI and enterprise automation in JD Edwards. So testing automation.
Yeah, that one comes up a lot. Yeah, test automation. And, as close as we've gotten to test automation, I think, are the concepts of the assertion framework in orchestrations. I don't know if you're familiar with the assertion framework. And we also carried that concept into logic extensions as well. And the answer, the concept's pretty easy. An orchestration can run and succeed perfectly. But there may be some logic in that orchestration or something in the entire system. It could be in the application, it could be in the third party, where you don't get the answer that you expected. And so with the assertion framework, we can put the expected outcome. You might consider it the positive test case. We can put that in the orchestration itself. And when we run the orchestration with the assertion framework turned on, not only does the orchestration tell us if it succeeded or failed, but the assertion framework will tell us if we got the answer that we expected. And that framework helps us to build test cases in Orchestrator, where if we change applications, we do an application update, maybe the exchange rate from a third-party system is different, maybe tax calculations are different. If any of that goes wrong in our entire system, we may not get the output that we expect. So that assertion framework helps us, build test cases and make sure that we're getting the right output. That's about as close as we've come in the Enterprise One area to building out automated test cases.
Maybe we will include a link to those data sheet that take us to the functionality you mentioned, because Thomas
Yep.
hasn't heard about it, so hasn't heard about the framework. So why not expand the knowledge to
Yeah.
everyone? Yeah.
We could do an entire webinar just on the assertion framework, but that's the thing you want to go look for. Yeah, the assertion framework. So yeah, I mean, these are, as I said, these are pages that we built. You can download those. You can build these today using the same concepts, right? If there are, we've shipped 3 of them so far. Our applications teams are eager to ship some more. So you should tell us which ones are important to you, so that we know that we're building out things that you really need. But in the meantime, there's nothing stopping you from opening up the editing tools, building a page using these same models and metrics. And I encourage you to play with these, to change these, do a save as, make them your own, build your own. This is work that you can be doing here and now. By the way, do we remember the name of this presentation was Enterprise Automation Here and Now? So this is the here and now of it. You should first, get your JD Edwards system up to the latest release, so you have these enhancements there. But yeah, play around with these, and we would love to hear what you do with them.
And before you step into the next topic here, Osman has a question for us as well. How can we use automation for the processes that do not have numeric or alphanumeric status flows? It's very clear for pro or for PO or work orders or processes like that, but not about fixed assets or quality, etc.
So if I'm understanding the question correctly, is it, what if these numbers on the watch lists are not coming directly from record counts and growth and grid rows?
Yeah.
Please hold that question. Have I got something for you?
Okay.
Yes.
So let's hold the thought.
Let's hold that question. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we have a poll here now. These are
Yeah.
the models in here. I'm curious to know.
Yeah. And I will ask the audience, are you using Enterprise One pages to depict process models? Yes, we have built Enterprise One pages that depict process models, or we are using Enterprise One pages for other things, but not for process models, or no, we are not using at all the Enterprise One pages. So everyone in the call, please submit your vote so that we can comment on that together with AJ later on. And the poll is off, so you can move ahead.
Okay, great. So of all those recent enhancements, I did want to focus on a few of them, right? And of course, those pages are the biggest thing. So hopefully you found some value and excitement in those. Workflow
only some of them have heard about enterprise automation. So actually, 17% are actually using them. So
the pages?
Yes, go ahead. Tell us
Okay,
more.
well, yeah. Well, hopefully in the context of enterprise automation, this will get you excited and a good reason to start, experimenting with those Enterprise One pages. Such a powerful, even outside of the concept of enterprise automation, there's such a powerful navigation simplification for your end users. All of those tiles can, all of these tiles can launch into applications. They can launch orchestrations. I have a completely different demo I would love to give sometime of my favorite orchestrations that are launched simply by clicking these rectangles. Very powerful simplification of the user interface. So, if only 17 people have built any of these Enterprise One pages, I would, challenge the other 87% to start looking at them and using them. But specifically, in the context of enterprise automation for building these models and exposing these metrics, this is capability that's right at our fingertips. Nothing stopping us from building these today. Moving on to workflow, hopefully you've noticed in recent releases, we put some energy into the good old JD Edwards workflow system that's been in the product for decades. Really, it's probably been in there 20, 25 years. Workflow engine, and automating it was sort of the first orchestrator, if you think about it. It was something that was guiding a process along where humans have to be involved. The problem was we had a workflow monitor, but it looked like this. And it really was, due for a modernization for a couple of reasons. One is all the data that you see on this is not even necessarily related to the workflow instances. You had to click on triangles and drill into data, and the data was there. The data was gold, but it was very hard to get to. So we spent some time building a new workflow monitor where it's exactly the same data, but it's much easier to interact with. We've even gone a step further to drill in and give you some metrics and charts about those workflow processes. Again, this is an important concept in enterprise automation. So we've applied that into specifically workflow itself. So if you're not using workflow, hopefully you've seen we've made it easier to build the workflows, because now you build workflows in Orchestrator Studio. You no longer have to go to a development client to build those. We've made it easier to launch workflows because you can launch them from logic extensions. Again, part of our low code, no code. You don't need to customize applications to launch a workflow and interject them at some event in the application. You can do that from our extensibility framework, so there's no more customizations to do. So a lot of energy has gone into workflow, and specifically the workflow monitor. And all of this matches up with the same theme of enterprise automation. I mentioned task tracking earlier, right? So an end user via a orchestration message or a notification message or some other mechanism can receive a task. Please, put this warehouse location on hold, initiate the workflow process, submit an incident report. These are all tasks that an end user might receive through a message or a notification. These are not transactions in the JD Edwards system, but they're important things to do. And a designer can set this up so that the recipient of these tasks can quite easily click a link and record, yes, I've done this task. We can even make this task automated, right? Behind this link, this hold location, for example, this could be an orchestration that puts a location on hold automatically, right? And then the end user can indicate whether they've completed or rejected that task. Behind this, in this task tracking framework, we also have, as you would imagine, new Enterprise One tables to collect this, more digital gold, more data being collected that we can go back and analyze later. So designers can set up these things for tasks to be tracked, and users get a very easy way to interact with them. And all the while, the data is being accumulated. And we've even got an Enterprise One application where you can visualize the data over this and take it a step further. Because this is an application, you can create watch lists against this, all part of the same enterprise automation theme for tasks that may not be represented as Enterprise One application transactions. And now we've got, an enterprise automation roadmap as well. But before I get into the roadmap, we want to know where you are in your releases. So our last poll.
Exactly. Everyone was very proud in Dallas to say, hey, I'm on 24. So it doesn't matter if you are or you're not on 24. We would definitely want to give you the value of the release 24 later on this conversation, so that you and your business take the decision to be on the release 24. So just a nudge here, like 50, no, we don't have yet results. We don't have yet the results for the polls. Oh, 44% release 23, 25% release 24, and the rest earlier than release 22.
Excellent. Those are very good numbers. So thank you for keeping up to date. That's very encouraging, which makes me very excited to go to the next topic, which is the roadmap, because we're not done yet. We're still building out things for enterprise automation, and we're still building out things across the digital platform as well. So we talked about the existing assets and the recent enhancements that fall into the 5-step life cycle of enterprise automation. Here are things that we've discovered that might be missing or are going to help this enterprise automation a little further. You know, adding data items to a form. Yeah, we know we want to collect digital gold, but what if I'm using an Enterprise One application and there's a data item that's missing, something that I want to collect? And it may not even be in the business view already. If it's in the business view, we can use form extensions to add it. But what if it's not in the business view? So we're looking for ways to solve that problem and be able to just build and collect more analytic tables, right? What if there's data in that JD Edwards system that I need to get out, but it seems to be missing? So some engineering, some ingenuity going on in that area. And we'd be very interested to hear what you think you need that's missing from this ingest phase. What is the gold that's missing from the JD Edwards data, right? We have more enterprise automation, additional business areas and models that we're planning to come out. As I said, please tell us what application areas you're most interested in so that we can sync up our efforts. I mentioned throwing software at the data and building the models, and I showed some screens. So in the next slide, I'm going to give you a sneak peek of what we're working on in terms of a process modeler and even an automated model generator. So we'll hold that one, and even enhancements is as easy as, I know I'm using Enterprise One pages, but wouldn't it be nice if I could just put some text boxes and images on those pages that weren't necessarily links? That's a user customer requested enhancement. So again, I'm not going to go through all of these one by one, but we've got a pretty good roadmap, a backlog of things. But more importantly, as you get into in the next upcoming days, weeks, months of experimenting with enterprise automation, please roll your enhancement requests back in through service requests, or if you're a member of the Quest user community, they have the Quest enhancement tool. However you can get those enhancement requests back to us, we definitely would like to hear about it. And here's some enhancements that we had planned for building the process models as Enterprise One pages. And here I'm going to focus on that one in the top right, because that's the question that came up earlier, I believe. What if that watch list number is something beyond a simple record count of rows in an application? Wouldn't it be cool if behind that watch list number was an orchestration or a logic extension, and its job was to do some more complex calculation? It could be database aggregations. It could be a sum of all the purchase orders that are open, right? That could be, 1 million euro. And wouldn't it be important for somebody looking at this to know how many open purchase orders are there? Not just the number of orders, but what's the sum total of economic value of those? It could be an average, right? Or it could be a minimum or a maximum. It doesn't even have to be an integer, right? That number could be a decimal, which then takes it a step further. What if that number was a date or a text string? So, and then we ask ourselves, well, why does it just have to be a badge? Maybe it's a pie chart or a very simple bar graph. And so our imagination can, lead us into some interesting places here if those watch lists are have a more robust calculation and possibly even some different visualizations. So, I think that's the question that came up earlier, and I'm pretty excited to see what comes of our engineering efforts there. Another enhancement is, why do those metrics, those watch lists, only appear on the nodes, on the boxes? Sometimes they should apply to the lines themselves, right? It could be a duration, right? What's the average amount of time it takes me to get from one status to the other? Or what is the number of transactions that went from step A to step B? And those are metrics that apply to the lines, not the boxes. So again, here's some enhancements to the E1 pages that we hope will help build out these models. But maybe even more interesting this concept of a process modeler, right? What if the pages are nice because they're available today, and we have complete control over building them manually, right? We can put any boxes on there that we want. But what if we just took the software, pointed it at some JD Edwards tables, and it automatically drew the process for us, as we talked earlier? And what if we pointed that same software and collected metrics about that model? Metrics both on the nodes and on the lines. And what if we were able to put some charts and graphs? Again, that same software could automatically build charts and graphs that showed data out of our system, maximums and minimums. So that's another thing, this process model or something we're working on, roadmap. It doesn't exist yet, so don't hold me to it. But we're hoping to release something like this in the near term. And of course, because I'm the product manager for the digital platform, even outside of the context of enterprise automation, there's some cool enhancements coming, right? I'm not going through these because they all exist on Learn JDE, but these are all enhancements that came out of the Orchestrator in the last several quarters. And if you notice the yellow box, what's brand new, this is our release 24 May release that's generally available today. We've got another whole set of, what are there, 8, 9 enhancements there, and more on the roadmap. Sneak peek of the roadmap. User-defined orchestration monitoring, I said, is already out. That's a more capability for granular monitoring of orchestrations. Be aware, it's possible to turn these on for all your orchestrations and collect data for all the orchestration steps. And if you have dozens or hundreds of orchestrations running, and those orchestrations have many, many steps, you're going to generate a lot of data. So please use this cautiously. It could be valuable data. Just know that it's possible to flip a few switches, turn on a few options, and start generating a whole lot of data. So be prepared for that and use it cautiously according to the documentation. For building workflows, I mentioned earlier, we put some energy into simplifying workflows. So now we have a sample approval workflow that you can just do a save as and add your own steps to it. We have pre-built data structures, so you don't have to go through the trouble of building a key data structure and an additional data structure for workflows. These sample data structures just have a bunch of common data items in them, strings, numerics, dates, that kind of thing. And there's even a pre-built message template where you can just do a bunch of text substitutions and build out a workflow message. So we put some energy there. This one excites me. Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. And Andrea, I think you mentioned, running JD Edwards on or with Oracle Cloud Infrastructure is very exciting.
That's the next session, how to reimagine that. And we are almost top of the hour, but we do have people hanging in. So I'm gonna continue this webinar because it's super exciting to at least have it recorded and share it with the audience. So
yeah,
happy to.
Yeah, we're about 3 slides away. So yeah. We're coming into the finish here. But Oracle Cloud Infrastructure offers an entire list. You can go out and see the list at the OCI documentation site of all of these OCI services. Well, what we've done in Orchestrator is we've opened up their authentication mechanism. OCI has their own authentication mechanism to use these services. And with this one simple enhancement, we can now orchestrate into all of these OCI services. That is very exciting, and I can't wait to see what you all do with that in the future. And then, for the digital platform, what's next? We have this idea of stateful orchestrations. Orchestrations today are one call and then they're finished as a REST API. But sometimes we have patterns where we want to stop that orchestration for something that happens in the middle of a step and then come back later and start that same orchestration instance again. And we call that stateful orchestrations. And this is something that we're working on in the near term. Another one is, hey, we want to send out messages, notification messages or orchestration messages. And sometimes we want to collect a lot of data that could come out of a grid, a whole table full of data. Wouldn't it be nice if we could automatically build a table of that data in the message? And so that's another thing that we're working on. And we also know that orchestrations can read data from FTP sites. A lot of you are using that to read data in, for example, for CSV files. But we don't always know if there's a file on that FTP site. So a customer requested enhancement came from you all is, can you give us better visibility, some tools to automatically read the FTP directories and files? And so now we're working on enhancements for that. So to finish all this up, AJ's been talking for a long time. What's the point? It brings us all the way back that our automation, our enterprise is a busy place. We're collecting a lot of gold. We're building some enterprise automation tools to help us show those models and metrics and analyze that. That's where our innovation is going to come from. And that's what's going to lead us to solutions and better continuous improvement. So that's my hour. Oh, have you heard about 2035? We have announced that our who hasn't yet, but our rolling window and our ways to connect. If you want to connect with me, by the way, here's my email, aj.schifano@oracle.com. Please feel free to email me and use that. So, that was a fast hour.
Thank you. And people hang on till now, everyone almost. So thank you everyone for participating in the session, for asking the questions. Everyone is saying that it was an interesting session. I'm sure the recording will be just great. And I would really like to welcome everyone on the 17th of June to reimagine your JD Edwards on OCI. AJ started to speak a little bit about how that is turning into orchestration, how we can get access into the OCI services, but we will reimagine that together with another of AJ's colleagues. So great session. Thank you for joining us today. And I'm sure by the end of the year, you'll be invited again, because this is just the startup.
It is a lot of work to do, but it's here and now, right? We've already started. So please, get started, play around with it, and send us back your comments and your enhancement requests.
Yes, indeed. So thank you, everyone. And thank you most of all, AJ, for being part of this community. And I will share to everyone the presentation, the data sheets that we promised, and hopefully a next session as pleasant as this one. Have a great afternoon and a great day for you, because it's early time. Goodbye.
Thanks, Andrea.